rise and we will say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everybody to our February the 4th Select Board meeting. Craig and Matt are both traveling, so they're unable to be here. We have a couple of announcements. The Grafton Recreation will host a Someone Special dance here at the Municipal Center in the gymnasium on Friday, February 28th at 7 p.m. The fee is $15 per family, and you can register today at graftonrec.com. The Great American Rain Barrel is returning to Grafton. Similar to last year, residents will be able to order rain barrels directly through the company before April 27th of this year. They'll be able to pick them up at the town's DPW barn located at 64 Old Westboro Road on May the 10th of 2025. The rain barrels are currently available for purchase by Grafton residents at the discounted price of $50 using the coupon code GRAF, all in capitals, 25. To order your rain barrel, visit www.greatamericanrainbarrel.com/community. And I believe this is on the front page of our website as well for that information. So that's great. Okay, we have no public hearings. So we will move on to appointments. And first we have the Community Preservation Committee, and is Jan, oh, there she is on via Zoom. Hi, Jan.
Hi.
Hi, you can hear us fine?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
We can actually.
Yeah, good.
Thanks for zooming in, and just want to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you might be interested in the CPC committee.
Well, I've been here in Grafton for almost 31 years. Served on the Board of Trustees for 10, Historic District Commission for 5, raised 2 girls here. One of the reasons I'm interested in serving on the committee is that I care about the outdoor spaces of the town. I'm very interested in preserving its historic resources, open spaces. I'm interested in learning a little bit more about the affordable housing issue, which is important across the board. And that's what I'm thinking.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for volunteering. I'll open it up to any questions from the board or comments to Jan.
Madam Chair.
Yep, Andy.
Thank you for coming in tonight, Ms. Berry. I was just wondering if there are any recent CPC projects that you've gravitated towards, or anything that you've appreciated, or anything like that.
Well, actually, I appreciate everything that happens in the town, and obviously the Upton Street thing has been something that I have gravitated towards and have been very interested in.
Is that the affordable housing project on
Yes.
Upton Street? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yep, Mark.
thank you, Jan, for volunteering. Just one question for me, and I'll just take a page out of Andy's book. Do you have time to do this? I'm assuming you have time to do this, but there's a little bit of a time commitment involved, and sometimes that's people think they have the time, and sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. So I figured I'd ask if you feel confident in your ability to commit to that.
I do believe I have the time, but you can let me know what kind of time is involved and I can tell you more.
What's the frequency?
It's about once a month.
Once a month, yeah.
And there's occasionally times where the committee might not meet, like I think in December, maybe they didn't have a meeting, but typically about once a month. And it's dependent on projects coming through.
Okay. I'm pretty much of a multitasker. I do, right now I'm basically a retired teacher. I do tutoring. I substitute teach at Touchstone Community School, hence my affiliation with Outdoor Spaces. And I have plenty of time. I have time.
And the meetings are in the evenings.
Right. If it's once a month in the evenings, that's great. During the day, I'm very flexible. If there are projects that someone needs me to work on, I'm totally fine with that.
Which would be good, because potentially researching things and looking into things, yep.
Right.
Anything else from the board? Okay,
And how many candidates do you have, Anne Marie?
just
A
one.
volunteer. That's what I mean.
That's okay. That's what we need right now is one.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Alamo.
I move the board vote to appoint Jan Berry to the Community Preservation Committee.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion carries 3-0. Thank you very much, Jan, for stepping up again, and congratulations. You'll have to head into the clerk's office at some point and just
Okay.
do the paperwork that's necessary prior to
Okay,
starting on the committee.
perfect. When should I do that, Anne Marie?
You can do it whenever you want. They're
Okay.
8 to 4:30, except Fridays. I think they're closed out by 1.
Yeah.
Pardon me, sorry.
I think they usually
I
send
will
out a
do
letter to
that.
schedule that too.
And they might send you, right, you might get something from them
Okay, perfect.
and wait till that.
All right, you guys, thank you so much.
Okay,
you.
thanks, Jan. Take care.
Good night.
You too.
Too.
Okay, moving along to Council on Aging, we have David DeGrand. Hi, David, how are you? Good. Do you mind just coming up to the either microphone? You can sit down or you can stand up there, whatever. Yep, wherever you're comfortable. And just same idea. We read what you sent in, but just a little bit about you
Okay.
and what you might be interested.
I actually didn't go specifically looking for the Council on Aging. I had retired a little over a year ago, and I got kind of inspired that after many, many years of doing virtually nothing for government, maybe I ought to get involved. And I went to the website and I browsed through the offerings. And when I hit Council on Aging, I said, wow, I might actually contribute if I went and did this committee. I retired from about 30 years of working as a doctor in nursing homes. So I think a year off from having to deal with problems with the elderly was probably a good thing. But I think I'm fairly well familiar with the things that are done by the committee and by the people who are involved in the FOGE as well. There's quite a similarity between the efforts they make to make life hospitable and pleasant for a nursing home population and many of the things that are going on in the senior center for the people who are free living in the community. So I doubt if they'll throw too many surprises my way, but I'm not really familiar with what their work involves.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Any questions from the board?
Madam Chair.
Right, Andy?
So they do meet Thursday, the second Thursday of the month at 1 p.m. Is that going to be an okay time for you?
Yeah, that works.
All right. And yeah, you know, on paper everything looked like a good fit. You had, impressive credentials for sure. Is there anything in particular that you think you could help the council with, or programs that you see a need for coming in, or just looking,
I'm at
general?
the bottom of the learning curve.
Okay.
I have no agenda whatsoever, other than to participate and find out what they might need.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything, Mark?
Yes, Madam Chair. David, what type of doctor were you?
Internist technically, but my experience was entirely in the nursing home, or almost entirely in the nursing home, and it was actually even a little bit more classified than that. I worked almost exclusively with the people who come in for short-term rehab. So typically it's a person that got out of the hospital. Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with the routine these days, but when you're in the hospital, as soon as they can, you're out the door. If you're not walking, you're in the nursing home.
Right.
And then a couple of weeks go by and they decide when it's time to go home.
Which nursing home were you at?
I did sometime, different ones in the Worcester area. I've done Millbury, and the last few years was Beaumont, Westboro.
Okay, yeah, great.
A year was enough time to retire. Think about
I'm
that a
expecting
lot
once a
myself.
month
So
meetings. Yeah, once a month meetings on a Thursday will be considerably less stressful than
good for you.
walking in the nursing
Yeah.
home and finding out what's
That's right,
happened over
fair,
the next,
yeah.
last day.
Be careful. That's it. We hook you with one meeting and then.
Yeah.
One day you'll be up here.
Yep.
Well, I think that you sound like you'll be a great fit for this, and thank you so much for stepping up. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay. I'll
Nope,
take a
Madam
motion.
Chair.
Mr. Alamo?
I move the board vote to appoint David DeGrand to the Council on Aging.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great, so welcome. Thank you so much for stepping up in your retirement. And same thing, you'll get a letter and or check in with the clerk's office. Okay, and you're free to stay if you'd like, but you don't have to feel like you have to stay. And that goes for anyone. Once your agenda items are up, you don't have to stay. We won't get upset if you walk out. Moving along to town administrator appointments, we have the reappointment of the principal assessor.
Yep. So similar to any regular reappointment, the principal assessor has to be reappointed every 3 years per the bylaw, and it is that time again.
Okay. And Tammy wasn't going to come in. We're all pretty familiar with her, and this is just kind of a process thing. So unless there's any discussion, I will take a motion.
I'll offer a motion.
Great.
I move the board vote to affirm the reappointment of Tammy Kalinowski to the position of principal assessor.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Okay, great. Moving along to new business. Is Bill Murphy here? Oh, great. Hi. And you can stay where you are, or if you want to come sit up in front, that's fine. Andy,
Yeah, if you wouldn't, I mean, if you wouldn't
come
mind
on,
coming up,
see the- dude. Whoa.
We're not going to ask you credentials.
yeah, easy night.
All right.
So just catching people up who may not know, you ran the Great World Race at the end of November. Right?
Yes.
7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days.
Yeah.
Placed 25th overall in the world.
I didn't know that.
In the world.
And you hope to raise $50K for the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
That was the original goal. Yeah.
What did your final tally end up being?
We just found out it was over 315,000 we raised.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So we're honored to have you here. Do you anything about the experience that you'd like to share?
Yeah. Antarctica's pretty cold, but the other day I think it was colder than Antarctica. In all seriousness, I was up in New Hampshire. It was -4. We were with the kids snowmobiling, and it was colder up there than it was in Antarctica. But then the wind chill in Antarctica gets pretty chilly. It was pretty pristine. It was grueling. I mean, we slept on planes, and when you everything that you plan on doing doesn't go according to plan. So you just got to go off your routines in preparation. But the why for me was raising the money. So it was a little easier to deal with some of the pain points and keep going. And a lot of the athletes were raising money across the world for various things. So it was pretty cool. Great group. There was 54 of us that did it. We went to we started in Antarctica, went to Cape Town, South Africa, over to Australia, to Istanbul, Europe, then Istanbul, Asia, and then down to South America. And the South American heat was in Cartagena was hotter than anything I've ever experienced. So the contrast between Antarctica and South America was pretty brutal on the body, as you can imagine. And we finished in beautiful Miami, so it was pretty cool. We had some family Make-A-Wish friends, and it was a incredible journey.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So thank you.
Wow.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's impressive.
I read about you had to leave somewhere abruptly, you guys, because of weather or something, and so someone was like finishing their marathon and.
Oh yeah,
Like-
so in Antarctica, there's no air traffic control, as you can imagine. You just land on the ice, and you have you have the pilots who see
Yeah.
the ice, and if the cloud cover comes in, it's a bad thing. You're stuck in Antarctica for a few days, weeks, whatever. And so we had the cloud cover coming in. We actually went a day early, off schedule.
Yeah, I read that. I think about.
Yeah,
that
I went
as
a day earlier, and then we left a couple hours early because we had to get out of there, or we would have been there for a few days. So I was telling people, I was like, it's cool to run 7 marathons on 7 continents, but in like 9 days, it's not as
I had a
fun,
nickel
right?
for every time I heard that.
well. To run one marathon, but okay.
Yeah. But, yeah. So
Really? How do you? Can I ask a few questions, Madam Chair?
sure.
I kind of consider myself a bit of a fitness enthusiast.
Yeah.
And but I couldn't. I ran the Boston Marathon once, in 5.5 hours. That's not a good time for those keeping score at home. It's terrible.
It's still
I
great.
can't imagine. What do you eat? Like, how do you prepare for that?
It's fueling. You want to fuel, but like you just want to take in calories at that point when you're on a plane and getting off a plane. I mean, as much as you can. It was a lot of, like, we brought a lot of our supplements.
Yeah.
Like waffles and sandwiches and gels and things of that nature to fuel. But it I lost 11 pounds in a week. I gained it back, but it's just that's what happens. Your body takes a beating doing it.
And how do you recover between races? Or do you
don't.
play
There
hurt?
was no
You
time.
don't like so just. I don't want to keep. I feel like I don't want to keep
Well,
everybody.
you're here now.
Sorry,
This
buddy.
is on you, sir.
Well, I was invited.
Yeah, no.
If you guys, so like you would run the marathon, like so in Antarctica, and then we came back to Cape Town at 4:30 in the morning. We had another marathon at 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
So there's no sleep.
No.
We like 45 minutes, and then
That's incredible.
because you had to go to a hotel and pack and grab all your stuff, and then we took off, and then we had an 18-hour flight to Australia. Never looked forward to an 18-hour flight as much
No.
as I did on that one because,
Yeah.
because you could sleep a little bit.
Yeah.
And then then you turn around and we went to Istanbul, and those Istanbuls were back to back. So you ran a marathon. You went to the hotel for a couple hours to shower and change, and then you were running the next across the bridge in Istanbul.
Wow. I could talk to you forever. Can't do it now.
Yeah,
But maybe
no,
I'll
no.
catch up with you sometime.
Anytime. I'm
It's
a
amazing.
local in
Congratulations.
Grafton, and I thought this was pretty cool. You guys invited me here, so I don't want to take up everybody's time. Everybody has an agenda here, so thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We
Thanks.
do have a
However,
proclamation.
hang on one second.
yes.
Yep, so we have a proclamation, and I can read that to you, then you can take it.
So be it hereby known that to all that the Grafton Select Board offers its sincerest respect and commendation to Bill Murphy in recognition of his completion of the Great World Race and his contributions to Make-A-Wish. In celebration of his achievement, we hereby proclaim February 4th, 2025 to be Bill Murphy Day. May his outstanding dedication be an inspiration to all in our community. Signed, every member of the Select.
Thank you so much.
All right, I feel like a little bit of a, not doing my part.
Amazing.
I mean, just flying to Cape Town, it took me 2 days to
Playing about.
recover. Great, thanks for coming in, both of you. Congratulations. Okay, yay, Bill Murphy. Okay, moving along, we have the DPW Advisory Committee here, I believe, to give us an update, and thank you for sending
We
over.
have all of us, all three of us.
Okay, great. Come on up if you want. Sit, stand, however you want to do
Is it
it.
okay if they sit here and I can
course.
be at the podium?
Yes, of
Yes,
course.
Are you able to pull up my presentation?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna do the hard copy.
Yeah, and thanks for sending that along earlier to us. That's great.
It's not my first rodeo.
And thanks for coming in too, doing this for us.
So, my name is John Bouchard. I'm the chair of the Public Works Advisory Committee. And I'm looking to get off the committee as easily it was for Jan and David to get on. Because I kept moved to town in '96, and then I ended up getting on Public Works in 2001, 2002, and finally, I think we've made some progress. Been involved with the new DPW building, Public Works for a number of years. The full committee, we have Adam Klein, Patrick O'Connell, and myself. So I don't think anyone here was on the board. Hopefully, you know something about Public Works, our advisory committee. I don't think anyone was on the board when we started our pavement management program. You get the next one, next slide. So our agenda, we just want to go over a little bit of background, what pavement management is in Grafton, and then our next steps for the next few years. Next slide. So I'm going to go through the first few slides fairly quickly. It kind of gives a background, and I'd be happy to answer questions about what pavement management is, but it's the practice of planning for pavement maintenance and rehab with the goal of maximizing the life of the pavement, the asset. And, the Public Works, it's getting the biggest bang for your buck. So we try to spend money when roads are in good shape versus when they're in disrepair. And we will hear from the public a lot of times and say, why are they paving Main Street when Estabrook is falling apart? We don't put a lot of money into roads that are falling apart because it takes 50 to 75% of the budget. And if we can use 2% of the budget on 10 roads, we can extend that life. And I'm going to go through that a little bit. So what the process is you do an inventory, you identify distresses, what the conditions are, you calculate a what's called a PCI, which is a pavement condition index. Then you come up with repair strategies and costs. We've done some GIS mapping to the town's system, GIS mapping in the town. Then we tested various budget scenarios, and then we identify candidate projects. So we do it, a lot of it is electronic, computer generated, but then we go out and do what's called ground truthing. So where the computer may spit out based on our recommendations, or we measure and we look at distresses in certain roadways. We have a consulting firm that's worked for us for a number of years that goes out and assesses all the roads. So there's someone on the street or driving with a video that is checking the conditions, and we see the number of cracks per length, per width, and we identify that as having a certain pavement condition. And we kind of calculate all that.
Yeah, do you mind questions?
You can
Would you,
ask me
would you
questions.
like me to wait till the end?
No, you can anytime.
Just curious, this is fascinating to me. So someone is driving around all day long every day, or once a week,
No,
once a month?
we do a, I'm going to get to that in the end, but I'll say that when I'm going to give a little history of how pavement management came into Grafton, and then how we assess it now, and
Okay.
what the plan is. Okay, so this next slide, please, shows what's called our pavement deterioration curve. So if we, in the upper part of the curve over to the upper left, it says excellent, then you can see good, fair, and it goes, in the roadway condition. So in that first part of the curve, the first 75% of the roadway life, if we invest $1, the numbers have changed, but it's kind of using that as a target. If we invest during that first 75% of life, it extends the condition that much longer. And if we miss that to when the roadway starts to get into fair, then we're investing more to get it back up to a state of good repair, or excellent and good condition. And we're utilizing a lot more of our budget on the roads that are fair and poor, and we're starting to be, we're kind of fighting an uphill battle there. Next slide, please. So this shows the treatment band description. So in the upper, it's do nothing. So we have a PCI in the 93 to 100. Excellent pavement. We're not recommending any treatment. Under the routine maintenance, we're in the 86 to 92%. May need some crack sealing or some microsurfacing, again, to try and extend that life. Preventative maintenance, we're roadways in the 72 to 85 range. And what we would do there is we might do a surface treatment to extend that life. We might do some full depth patching if we have any utility patches or utility repairs that haven't, we always find those repairs don't always hold up to the rest of the roadway, but cut it out, put in a full depth repair, bring it up to the top surface, and then it's going to last that much longer. And then structural improvement and base rehab. Just wanted to mention those. So the next slide shows the repair history from 2008 to 2013. And the graphic's a little bit small, but since you got an advanced copy, I'm sure you all memorized this before I came in. But in the bottom left of that map graphic, it shows that in 2008, we did base rehab is red, so the roadways that are colored in red, and then orange for the 2009, 2010, and so on. So we started pavement management in 2008. But at that time, our initial investments were Chapter 90 only, so about $500,000. And it was not systematic. It was, the highway superintendent or the town engineer back then, based on an assessment that road needs to be addressed. So there wasn't a big picture plan. So then we conducted a comprehensive study in 2013 because we saw that the pavement condition was starting to trend downward. So that's the next slide, please. Shows in 2008, we were at a 75. 2013, when we did the comprehensive study, we had lost a couple of points. We were down to to 73. Next slide gives a distribution of the conditions. So you can see that the treatment bands that I referenced before, the 93 to 100, were the do nothing, and you could see how our distribution was in 2013. And the next slide shows what our investment was going to need to be, $16.5 million to get 94.2 miles of roadway in Grafton up to snuff. And that was a pretty big number. So we ran some funding scenarios. Next slide. We came up with option one, which is what the town had been doing, is investing that $500,000 in Chapter 90 money per year. Option two, we said, well, what if we did $1 million? So the $500,000 in Chapter 90, and we supplemented it with another nearly $500,000 to have a full $1 million. And then a third option, which was, what if we did $2 million for 5 years, and what would that do for us? After we went through this, we came to the selectmen at that time, select board. It was a bit different then, but came and met, and then we also went to the finance committee and town administrator and said, here's some options. So we bounced a few ideas around, and we came up with, this is what it would do. So this condition graphic shows that the green is if we did the $1 million, which was essentially $500,000 on top of our Chapter 90, and it really wasn't getting us a big bang for our buck. It was keeping a status quo. We're going to drop a little, come up a little as we attack things. The blue band shows if we were doing $2 million, which was the $500,000 at Chapter 90 plus another 1.5, and then the red was if it was only the Chapter 90, the 500,000, we're going to see some trending down, and that's what we saw from 08 to 13. We started to see it start to trend down. Next slide. So we kind of came back with an alternate option, and I might have called it 2B back then, is that we wanted to do $1.5 million. We ran a couple graphs that said this is what it would do. So that was going to be about $500,000 at Chapter 90, maintaining that, and then $1 million road bond. So we had to come to the board and present through the town administrator, and we went to town meeting and got $1 million road bond. Then we had to do a debt exclusion, a vote. So, next slide. Since that time, essentially it was 2015 after we received that money, we've had an implementation of that road bond investment plus Chapter 90 for 10 years. We've spent a little over $15 million. This RAP funds have supplemented that investment. That RAP funds, a lot of times the state, MassDOT, will have leftover funds that they'll alert the towns in the spring. And they'll say, hey, it's leftover Chapter 90 money that hasn't been fully used, or there's money left over from the state budget, and they'll contact and say, use all the same rules of Chapter 90, so you can't just do whatever you want, you have to follow those rules, and the town might get an extra $80,000 or something that in the DPW and engineering department will come up with and add something in to supplement that. So in that 9 to 10 year time frame, we did 46.2 miles of roads. We did a combination of chip seal, mill and overlay, and then a reclaim and pave based on the condition. The road bond money doesn't include crack sealing and regular maintenance. Next slide shows what our condition improvements were from 08 when it was at 75. We had that little dip when in 2012, and then did the full assessment and brought it up to 79 as of through last year. Next slide, the distribution of our road mileage by the pavement condition index. You can see we're trending, kind of above the 66 to 70, so we're in the fair to good and above. Next slide. And then this kind of shows, based on where we're at, the treatment bands, the do nothing, how many miles, the routine maintenance, et cetera. So we've gone up from 94.2 to now 96.9. So we've had some accepted roadways in town or things that had been miscalculated by MassDOT back then. And our backlog is down to just under $11 million from 16.5 just almost 10 years ago. Next slide shows our plan for 2025, 26, and 27. By that little graphic in the bottom left of the map, you can see 2025 is in blue, 26 is in green, and 27 is in orange. And because that is so easy to read, we gave you the next three slides, which show the roads that we're planning to do in 25, 26, and 27. And that is all I have, and I will take questions.
That's great.
Well, I guess I could do our final summary, which is just, I guess, your question about, is someone out there every day? So what we recommended years ago in a previous consulting firm that I worked in, now I work for MassDOT, is we would break towns into like 4 or 5 pieces, such that, and we'd go out there in the spring and we would do a quarter or 20% of the town every year. So that way, at the end of 5 years, the whole town had been evaluated, and the data is no more than 5 years old. So you're making decisions, based on real time. And we might do, we do a video or a photo inventory and then measure and then run our calculations. And then if something doesn't look right, we'll go back out and say, why did this? And then we find out water department or gas company had gone in and done something and it wasn't patched great, so the rest of the road has deteriorated a little bit more. Or there was a development and there were a lot more trucks using the roadway and we saw that happen, and things like that. So as I said in our kind of treatment band, is to invest more money with good roads to excellent roads, so that way we get bigger bang for our buck. We recommend assessing state programs and grants for roadways that have started to go into disrepair, usually through the Transportation Improvement Program, which the town has embarked on in the past. There is a plan for Chapter 90 to increase in the Governor Healy's new budget for this year. The additional $100 million, it's been $200 million for about 20 years, almost 20 years. She's proposing $300 million, but the additional $100 million has a rural factor to it. Reason being that over the years that they've done the typical Chapter 90 formulas, City of Boston and Worcester and Springfield have gotten a predominant large amount of the dollars. They're spending it, but some of the rural communities in central and western Mass are not getting the same amount, and they have just as many needs as some of the larger cities. So she's proposing the formula for the extra $100 million to have a rural factor to it, and it came from one of the state legislators from out in Western Mass, Representative Pignatelli, who retired recently, but he's been trying to push and say, hey, we need to change our formula on this to try and get more money. I mean, that still has to go to the legislature for approval, but that's her overall plan. On other state programs, we have a municipal paving program, which is for state numbered routes that are town owned. And we're doing that, statewide, and towns can apply through MassDOT's website for that. And then also complete streets and safe routes to school funding. Millbrook Street sidewalks are getting done under the Safe Routes program. The town is responsible for paving the roadway, and that was a deal that was cut years ago when the project was first envisioned. The Safe Routes to School program has a somewhat limited budget. So when there was other work that needed to get done, the town said, hey, we need the road paved too. When you do the sidewalks, what if we kind of cut a deal back then for the town to pick up the paving of the roadway, and then the sidewalks and other work, drainage improvements, et cetera, would get incorporated as part of that Safe Routes program. So I know all about that stuff. I work at MassDOT.
Wow.
Now you got any more questions?
No, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, you had a good question.
No, outstanding work. Really, it's really very thorough, really interesting, and obviously a great way to go about it.
Thank you.
Andy, any questions or comments?
Question, just curiosity. I don't know if you have the info in front of you, but I see George Hill Road and all the connectors are on the draft plan for 2027. I'm assuming all the current data about George Hill Road factors into the charts. It's not
Yes.
excluded.
This report or this presentation is based on our pavement report from November of last year.
Okay.
The committee met that time, got the full report and what was programmed. As I said, the computer will spit out, and I apologize, the terms are not, but the computer will offer, these are the roads that you should do based on these factors, and you put those factors in, sensitive receptors, schools, places of worship, things like that as part of, that people might be going to, and then it will it'll generate a list. And then you'd really need to go out and do what we call ground truthing. You got to go out and look at it and say, yeah, I know the computer said that we should do this, but this one's in better shape. We could do more here, or this one could fit under a different program. So the area, because of the George Hill project, the engineering department in town and the consultant working, on the update has assessed those and said, hey, if we're going to be up there paving, we want to bundle that we're doing stuff at the same time.
Right.
And we have in the past, and I rely on Mrs. Zirko in engineering to coordinate with the water department if they're going to be doing work, if they're going to be doing a repair or anything like that. We don't go in and pave the road the week or the year before they're going to be going in and doing some other work, try to coordinate that. So, again, we get the biggest bang for our investment.
Any idea how many miles of roadway in that George Hill project are included in that scope and would come off of our base rehab and structural improvement miles?
I don't know. I know what the condition index is because we haven't done we haven't done the estimates to do the engineering yet to say this is what for that section. We're saying that computer has generated a list. We've done some ground truthing. We've bundled a few, but we haven't done any estimates unless we've done estimates and I'm not aware of. He could have more information. But.
Not a huge deal. It was more just a curiosity. Like, okay, once we finish this project, we can move 4 miles of road from the last column over to the first column.
Right.
Like that's a big win. And I think the results from 2015 to 2024 chart is really impressive and shows the work that's gone into this program. There's been systemic improvement.
So those sections around George Hill are on our 27 list, but we've zeroed them out because they're going to be done under that other program. So under that plan.
Right, we're not exactly. We have the.
Make sure you do the microphone.
Get closer.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So we have the bond.
Yep.
That the town applied for, and then another 315,000, I believe, that we're going to be utilizing from either town funds or Chapter 90 or something like that. So that's why, for the cost estimates for what we're doing, if you look at 2027, there's a boatload more work just based off the color. That's because I put those at zero for the dollar amount for those roads. And it's in 2027. We anticipate it's going out to bid this spring. And then, maybe in the fall you do tree cutting, things like that. Full construction won't start until the following year, and it's going to be at least a 2-year project. So that's why I programmed it for 27.
And I didn't actually mean the cost. I just meant do you know offhand how many miles of roadway in that area will be upgraded?
George Hill is just north of 2 miles. Fay Mountain is about 0.8, and Soap Hill is not really much there. So say those two are about a mile.
Probably about 3 miles total.
Yeah.
In that
Yeah.
section.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, and Leland is also in there.
Which is also short, relatively
Yeah.
short, right?
Makes sense to get things done while we're in one area.
Yeah.
That basically covers your 0 to 50 range in that chart on your PCI index right there. I mean, that's 3 columns worth of data that you get to zero out with that one project. It's pretty neat. Yeah.
Although we zero out that in the next year, when you'll see that those that are in the upper 40s start to trend to the 50s and they catch up, and it's an investment. You got to stay ahead of it. That's all.
Of course. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just thank you very much. I want to be sarcastic. I'm too tired to be funny, but I usually can try to be.
I think you're hilarious.
Thank you very much. I'm on my game tonight, but I will say that I appreciate that. I'm sure people watching that are paying attention to this kind of thing appreciate the thorough nature with which, you're attacking all this, and also, sir, your passion for it too. You got to like what you do, and you seem to like it a little bit.
I went to school for civil engineering. This is all I know. So, but I did get a new DPW for the town. I went to town meeting for that, and then we got this. So
Thank you
I've
very
invested
much.
a few times in
Thank you.
things. Thank you. Craig called me last week, told me he wasn't going to be here, and wanted me to do a special just for him. I was like,
He would have liked this very
No,
much,
I
right?
said, I
He
don't-
asked me
I don't
to-
have
I was
time.
thinking
It's better that
a
he's
shame
not here.
missing it,
There'd be
yeah.
too many questions
Yeah.
that he knows the answer to.
yes, probably.
I just have a question. So in terms of these it's great. Thank you very much for the presentation. I agree with Mark that clearly you're passionate about this, and thank you to the committee for the work that they've done. Where can folks see this, like these 3 years? Is this available somewhere in terms of, I remember the.
Generally, I always refer them to DPW and engineering for that information. I mean, we generally will come to that information is
Just like say
maintained.
2025, this draft paving plan, is that somewhere where folks can see it? Like,
As I said, I refer them to DPW,
Okay.
whether they have on the website or on their page or anything like that. Brian's coming back to tell you what the
just it's a question, that folks ask, like,
Oh,
hey,
not a
why is
problem.
that street going and when's mine coming up?
Generally, what I do is I wait for the winter to go by, because like I said, we always call it a draft
Yep, for sure.
program
Understood, yeah.
until, okay, go back out, make sure we don't have to drop something off because another section of roadway or something
Sure.
took place during the winter time that it calls for being addressed. So something may drop off. But then once the weather turns and before we start construction, I will post it onto the DPW site.
Okay, that's good to know.
Or actually not me. I'll have somebody else post it to the site because I have no idea.
Great, because, comes up, folks ask. And then I just wanted to commend you on having the vision, 10
Yeah.
or so years ago, or whatever that was, and the town for,
well, that was town DPW that they
So
could
all of
see.
yeah,
And, I just happened to be on Public Works and worked for an engineering consultant that did some of this work. And when it was like, well, what, I said, well, you got to do a bigger picture view. You can't keep picking these off by, I was driving around town and I happened to notice that, Adams Road needed to be repaved. You need to put together a comprehensive
right.
plan.
So this committee, our DPW folks, and at the time, the select board administrator, et cetera, and the town for passing it, because this shows that it's working. And so I just thank you all for
Thank you.
that. Great, okay.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate it. Really helpful info. Okay, moving along to the Cable Oversight Committee update and amendments to the charge. I think we have some folks here that you guys might have met earlier, but maybe, Mark, I forget how much you went through it last time in terms of the actual changes. I know that the name obviously is one thing, and then it was kind of like the last item relative to
Yep.
money, essentially, or budget, et cetera.
Yep.
Getting the Godfather treatment here, Bob.
Okay.
Okay, so
Had a chance to
essentially.
see it?
Yeah,
What do you think? Have you reviewed the new charge and followed along with some of our thoughts? We've been having an ongoing dialogue here a little bit at this table, and a little bit with Evan, and then trying to figure out how to bring the Cable Oversight Committee to a little bit more of a current status, the way all the other towns, almost all of the other towns in Massachusetts are operating. And so we've been having that conversation. The team seemed to think it was a good idea. And as we're here now, we figured we'd get your thoughts on the subject as well. So who wants to go first? Mr. Chair? Okay.
We went through the latest draft this last hour. I think, where did Corson go? Corson? Fine. Over there.
You want me to sit over there?
Yeah. There's a microphone over there. You got 4 members. Which, by the way, we should get a 5th member. Hello. We walked through it, read through it. I think probably each of us has some different outlooks. Partly because we range in experience and whatnot from the entire life of the committee down to, this year. this year, last year, somewhere around the beginning, a couple of months ago. And that does make a difference, I think, to the outlooks that we saw. I can tell you a couple of probably just details to start with, reading through the text. On the first point, I wouldn't say franchisee, say licensee. People want to talk about cable franchises, but I think they're cable licenses. Not that it makes much difference, but that's the way I learned it when we did the first license. Let's see. And the other one that I caught is a little bit not quite clear what you really intend. The next, no, the third from the bottom, to conduct an annual public hearing to review the performance of the PEG access provider. Oh, wait, before, on the first one, you say the franchisee, it should be license, plurals. Licensees, you have two licensees, not one. All right, PEG access provider. And PEG access is the public access government channel. The cable providers, the cable licensees don't really provide PEG access in Grafton. And I think we think that the intent is something a little different from that. We haven't had this back in the day. We have on occasion had annual hearings about the performance of the cable licensees. People can come and have a say about how they're doing, and that helps to feed into what you may want to do as far as pushing back against the companies. I think the provision of PEG access is actually pretty much done at the studio. So,
I'll go. So I want to thank the board for taking the time to look into this charge again. I know, Mark, you spent a lot of time looking into this and trying to update it. I know I personally really like this version of the charge. It gives the committee some direction. I know we discussed tonight that a lot of us haven't even seen the most recent cable licensing agreements. So getting that on agendas so that we can be reviewing the licensing agreements. None of us knew tonight when even the next negotiation was up. So just having that, that really tailors where our conversations will be going forward. I really liked that. And, you know, I think this is going to be a good charge going forward. And as we discussed tonight too, the last charge was just updated in August. We can try this for 6 months to a year. And if we see some amendments or changes we want to make, we can always bring that back to you guys. So I'm in favor of this charge.
I pretty much agree with that. It's a start in the right direction, I think, and it will give us more visibility. Which, I mean, I've been on the committee for a year. I haven't seen any negotiations, either before or after the fact. And if it was before the fact, it was well after the fact. So, how can we give you any input if we don't see any documentation specifics? So.
The only thing when I read through the information, the first thing that I picked up on was there was no monetary control over any of the spending of the cable funds, which we've been trying to police for decades. And it was only until this past year that it came under fire where town administrator, I'm sorry, the town administrator was, wanting to make it in line with the other departments, setting a limit of $5,000, which, we, for the most part, kind of accepted and came to terms with that. But, this one basically wipes it out entirely, so that we have no oversight at all of that. Furthermore, it's no longer the cable oversight, it's the cable advisory committee. So the committee disappears, you're saying?
So it just transitions from oversight to advisory, and the reason that is the case is because it takes the team of individuals on the committee to sort of a higher level. Instead of, looking at scrutinizing, call it a $20 acquisition or purchase, or a smaller issue to evaluate or explore, it takes you to a higher level and looks at like bigger picture issues. So when you move some of that away, you become more of an advisor versus oversight. For me, the only reason I got into this is when you all came in that one night. It was some time ago, and it was interesting to me. And as I did the research on it, all the other towns, except for I think 2 or 3, now call themselves cable advisory for the same reasons. Just to look at it from like a higher level, bigger picture kind of a discussion. Because really cable subscribership is diminishing dramatically. And now you have content, creators and content providing that sort of, in a lot of ways does a nice job, runs itself in a certain way, a certain respect. So it doesn't really need that day-to-day sort of management, if you will. And also, they report to the town administrator anyway, so they're subject not only to that $5,000 spending limit, but also the overall plan of how much money do you have, what is your budget, and how much do you need, and what are you spending it on, and it goes through the same scrutiny as all the other departments with Mary and with Evan. So just kind of looking at that course, and it was like, well, maybe the team could serve a greater purpose, and I don't mean, like, the purpose is great anyway, but a more current purpose, like everybody else is doing. And I'm not necessarily that person with everything in my life, like, hey, they're doing it, so I'll do it too. But it does seem to make sense the more I dug into it. I'm only one person, and that's why I talked about it with the select board. And so this is all food for thought, but it's pretty good food, for what we're trying to accomplish. And it does bring one of our goals, at least that we have talked about, is looking at various committees and boards in the town and making sure that they're current and they make sense. And some committees or some may not be, current, and they just will dissolve. And some of them, I think, are going to anyway. Mm-hmm. Not that this one would. This certainly wouldn't. But the exploration of that sort of got into this point. That's how we got here. Mm-hmm. And that's why. So if you think about, Evan and his role, this is all subject to his scrutiny, to his leadership, to his management, just like every other department is.
Right, with respect to the
So
budget.
he basically will oversee the financials for all of the
He already
cable
kind of
revenue.
does, from what I understand.
He hadn't before, but okay, it is now.
What hasn't he done before that he's gonna do now?
What I mean is that we basically determined what the funds would best spent on, and they would be presented to the board for approval on some larger projects. But for the most part, that control or that aspect of it would no longer be our responsibility.
My understanding is that had changed already. I don't know exactly when, but that with looking at the department head and how the budget was being presented, that had already,
Wasn't that the 5,000?
you still had some discretion over kind of the smaller.
Well,
Yeah,
who knows?
right.
There is a part of this that the cable fund is a special fund that is created through the terms of the licenses. That money, under the law and so on, is supposed to be used only for cable purposes. And so the process of looking at that should be somewhat different. You want to be sure that the money is being used for cable purposes. And I think this reads like trying to fix that. You've got your budget problems. And you know, I think people recognize that, but when the time comes, there should be, it would be really good. We've been building up what we've got for 40 years, 39 of which had money. The first year, we got $900 from the town. I did, well, I know how this works. The goal is to make, I think, public access, well, the whole cable system, of course, should be good, but particularly to forward access, and I'm not sure that this is going to give the committee much opportunity to do that. We're not even going to be able to include what was done, because we're not going to get a report from the department. So we're not going to be able to put anything about that. You'll see in this year's annual report information about what all was done and so on. We won't know. We won't have, formally even know that. Anyway, I don't know what to put on next month's agenda, because there isn't much here for us to do. I can ask for copies of the licenses for everybody. And they can go entertain themselves.
No, but I think that's a great agenda item, though, that these aren't
Well,
small contracts.
we could get the agendas without needing, we could get the,
Copies of the license.
the licenses without too much,
Okay,
meeting.
Andy?
Just looking for clarity on when you say what was done down there. Are we talking about the programs that have been produced, or work that's new equipment that's been purchased down there? All of the above. What are we
all of the
encompassing in that?
The whole, where all that money goes and where what the program provides.
Mark, yeah, one thing that you mentioned about the fact that you wanted to try to make us more like the other towns in terms of more in line with the way things are now. I was more or less thinking about the fact that if you look to see what this town has and what we have created, no other town has anything close to this. They don't have this kind of ability in multiple conference rooms. They don't have a fiber optic network put in through their town. All of these different projects that we have gone through and produced, no other town has the ability. Making us like the other towns tells me that is the direction you want to go.
Andy?
Hang on, Andy.
Okay.
It felt like it made sense, because I'm not sure I agree with that, because I have seen other town meetings on TV and we see that stuff all the time.
They don't have the same equipment, same abilities like what we have in this town.
Like what, though?
Over the years,
Like-
everybody's.
I mean, I think it's great. Good. Yay, Grafton.
I think the Zoom world, I think, is nudging that way. Are you still?
Go ahead.
Okay. We have a unique history compared to other towns. We have a unique history in the way we've gotten to where we are. I would say most towns, smaller, that had cable licenses, issued cable licenses, ended up with a 501c or whatever it is to run cable, public access, and all of that. The money went to them, and then they ran it. We never had a 501c3 because of this history that I can spend a couple hours on if you like. What we have evolved partly through all of this, mostly when I was negotiating, getting everything we could. And we got to where, okay, you could have more money, but you couldn't have any more of the company people to use the money to do things. So we started hiring town employees and all of that. But I think in a lot of places, certainly it was, and I haven't heard about a lot of changes. A lot of the places that I know and knew, cable, particularly cable access, was run by a 501c3 with some sort of anywhere from completely independent, go do your own fundraising, to some sort of a tighter connection with
Town.
the town.
Andy?
Thank you. I think adding on to what's already been said, everybody is certainly grateful for the work that this committee has done for the town and for the standard to which GCTV has been held and grown. I fully agree. Watching other town recordings and stuff, there are several that are beneath us that I consider their quality to be much less than what Grafton produces. And I don't believe we're asking, we're certainly not asking the committee to go away. We're not asking you to, really, I don't think, do anything other than kind of removing that budget aspect, which to me is like a vestigial limb at this point. That aspect was necessary when the cable providers were overseeing production of, and the studio functions. But now that it's moved from those providers to an actual department head, it falls under the same, rules and guidelines as any other department for the most part, in the municipal center. So this aims to bring that more in line with what we expect of kind of all the other committees in an advisory role. And we're still going to rely on your knowledge and expertise to come back to us to make all the same suggestions that you've been making and keep us, in the past, maybe it was directly to the TA or with the department head. There's, I'm sure, still going to be a degree of that. But, keeping your insight and approach here, but with less direct access to the budget, I guess, being the case, because we just don't have anybody else that functions that way. I'm in the same boat that I think it's a change that has more or less happened, and we just haven't updated the paperwork. So at this point, we're making the clerical updates to bring this more in line with how we feel, the committee functions and should continue to function.
Madam Chair?
Yep, Mr.
Yeah, so Mr. Jefferson, I think that's a great way to put it. It doesn't mean that you can't have good ideas and draw on your great experience and knowledge that brought the town to where we are today, to such a great level of content production. It just means that the department reports to Evan, really, and is subject to those kinds of things. And he already does. He already does. Yes.
And it
Ms.
says
Roy.
that in the charge too, that to continue to investigate and advise on just
Right.
that, new technologies, new
Right, what's
updates, new
cooking?
things
Yes.
that we can be doing. So that's,
We would want that. I think Andy's right. Sorry, Mr. Jefferson's right.
You can call me Andy.
No, so I feel
I vacillate between your first name and last name.
great experience, produces great knowledge and also great ideas, and I think the town wants those ideas.
So,
I'm not sure I see the path to really accomplish anything different than what we've done before. We brought major projects to you to approve, when it was more than whatever there was an amount for a contract that had to be, 30,000 or something, it wasn't some number. But I just don't,
so I have a question to the committee. Other than the budgetary oversight piece, are there other, I mean, you mentioned the licensee versus franchise, and then that other bold item relative to PEG.
Right.
Is there anything else in this charge that you disagree with, and/or is there a specific item or line that you would want to include? Again, the budgetary oversight, oh, go ahead.
So not necessarily exclude, but more clarification on to perform such other duties related to cable services as a select board may from time to time request. Do you have like a idea of what that might be? We did discuss that in our meeting, as that was kind of vague, which it's clearly designed to be, but do we have a sense of what that might be, or?
That could be sort of in the various bucket, something that might come up.
That's how we
It's
read it.
it's an opportunity to provide that.
Okay.
So, unforeseen content creation, unforeseen circumstances to get into that.
Okay.
That's a miscellaneous column.
Okay. Perfect.
In other words, it's not.
But we
like-
can modify that. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to visit with you all.
Right.
Yeah.
Is if you think that requires more modification, different wording, and make it more unique and specific to Grafton, that's one of the reasons we're here.
Meet from time to time. Do you want to just say annually? Or is
Well,
So where's the-
I could say that,
What do you-
but
where-
then
Midway.
he might have a different opinion, and she might, and he might, and he might. So
you might just want to see us every week. That's fine.
I don't. We already see you every week, Miss Roy.
we have talked about having all of the boards, and or committees come in on a rotating basis. So we could put annually and then additionally as needed, if, above and beyond that. So perhaps annually would be a good idea. And again, this isn't just pertaining to this committee. That is our hope going forward, is that we're just going to be doing this. So that's fine. We could,
Just so that we meet your expectations.
Yep. and you know what to expect, as well.
there's nothing in here that provides any interface between us and the department.
Okay.
So,
In terms of like
Madam Chair.
expectations.
Sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
Through you, what would you like to see that look like?
Like it did.
Now,
We gotta somehow have an ongoing dialogue with the department head.
Yeah.
We need to hear from him what's been going on.
How do you feel the quarterly check-ins have
Oh.
been working?
Quarterly, well, who knows now, but quarterly wasn't as much as I wanted, because when things going, you can't pursue ideas very, I've been interested in upgrading the way the hearing protection works, or hearing aid to the Bluetooth from what we have here now, the old loop. But there's a dialogue about that. What do we have? How does it work? What can we do? What's the state of the art? And we always had every month we'd have a conversation. Bob's been basically in his position, forever. Well, a long time. Up until recently, he was on the committee and we had the dialogue. It was no problem.
Right.
Now you have none.
hang on. So I hear that, and maybe that's something we need to scrutinize a little more. But just having had some responsibilities, like local responsibilities, which fold into a region, which fold into like a coast and I would have several people to answer to. And as the person that has those people, I'm just drawing on my own experience. Having the responsibility, like I have a boss, and then 6 other people that I have to report to on stuff, that's a lot for someone. And I don't know what Bob's position is on that, but for me personally, it's the first thing I hear. That's a lot for someone, because there could be competing agendas. He has a boss, and it's Evan. So that would be one way he would report to Evan, and the team, the advisory committee, could potentially follow this charge and come up with new ideas, explore new technology, share that potentially with Evan, and also engage with Bob and Bill as needed. But I don't know, I'm a little sensitive to that because I've had some bad experiences. That's one person's opinion. Go ahead, Corson.
Thank you. In terms of the meeting, again, if it's done every quarter,
Yep.
you were saying if that's often enough, if there's a particular topic that involves a certain amount of dialogue and development, that we have that conversation, then we have to wait 3 months before we could have that second conversation. It would be nice if we could say, look, we request that you come in to carry on that conversation, to follow up with this project so that it can move forward, rather than having it every quarter, so to speak.
That's fair. Are we having all those, like, there's a lot of things that are happening that require.
As they would happen. I'm not saying
Right, okay.
specifically,
Yeah.
but I mean, as those types of things happen, that there may need to be a way where we can request that the department head
Bob.
come to one of our meetings to further explore what would be a development, either it be a technological development or a project.
Yep, noted. I mean, go ahead.
Sorry. So to the chair's point, there's no verbiage about interfacing with the department head. We currently receive access reports each month. If the department head's amenable to still sending us that creates that level of communication that I find them to be very helpful. He can easily send those to Evan too. I know Evan asks for weekly updates too, so it shouldn't be that much more work, but that gives us insight to what's going on in a way that's already currently happening.
But it has to be a two-way communication, not just the report from.
Where did we leave off on that? Bob was going to come in once a quarter?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, well, he was gonna.
But he has come in, he provided the information, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that okay, Zoom, or you'd prefer
Well,
in person?
I'm a great fan of Zoom, but I come here for planning board, and I felt that our situation with cable was a good opportunity to show people that we have a meeting room down there. And we've been getting most, if not all, except when Bob participated. Remember anybody else?
So for,
Yeah, we've had select board members attend via Zoom.
Oh,
yeah, I've been on that.
well, Zooming. Oh, no, well,
And
anyway.
in person.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
we
in
don't
person.
spend
So,
Last
yeah,
year.
we've
Keep
had.
going.
Not a lot of room in there for in
We
person.
were here last year.
Not a lot of space.
Oh, there's
So-
for a dozen people there.
I think
Okay,
that,
well, that's fair.
duly noted in terms of the relationship with the department head for this committee. And I think that, perhaps we need to tease that out a little bit further and to try to make that work. I don't know that we're going to solve this tonight, like it's going to be every other month or monthly or quarterly or what have you. But perhaps that is something that we can look at trying to add in here in some way, shape, or form. Because it would be helpful if everyone is
Work together.
moving in the same direction and or knows what the right hand and what the left hand's doing. I think this is something that we need to think about a little bit more, and the committee and the department head, as a matter of fact, maybe to give us or give Mark or Evan some feedback on that, and that perhaps that could be something that could be added in here in some way, shape, or form.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Andy, and then Bob.
I do, yeah, I do like the idea, I think, of maybe codifying, the quarterly visit from the department head. You know, I don't know if that's something that has to go in the charge specifically, but, you know, then it's there for everybody. But I'm more wondering if there's a reason that, again, you know, speaking to needing answers to questions that you come up with, wouldn't it be possible to draft those questions up and then provide them to the department head who can give you responses for your next meeting? You know,
Again, just
I mean this.
thinking outside the box or thinking about other ideas.
Yeah, you know,
Text,
communication through the chair,
And/or-
you know, something like that. That so then the responses come back. Just because, again, I know we're trying to be respectful of the department head's time, and you know, even through our experience here, frankly, some of the conversations get a bit circular and can stagnate a bit. And I think that's really what we're trying to, you know, cut through to a degree with some of this. So I feel like even with the quarterly, you know, there's still the opportunity for written communication between the chair and the department head to get answers to things that you would need. I also do feel it's reasonable for you to request the department head's presence if there is some issue that arises in a month that they're not scheduled to be there. You know, there's something that comes up that you absolutely need them there to talk about. I think that's a reasonable request. But again, that's to me, that's between you guys and the department head, and your choice to make. So,
Well, no,
Yeah.
if if it says quarterly, we don't have a choice.
And I think that, again, we can perhaps
Craft some words.
phrase that bullet point
But-
in such a way that it meets hopefully both the department head's needs, your needs, and or Evan, et cetera. But it sounds to me that we have, you know, a couple of points here, a couple of specific things that we need to look at. Also, perhaps the committee, the department head, and us, this board can think about a way of drafting another bullet item that would meet the needs of this committee in addition to, you know, everyone else. And then perhaps if there's more input as you think about this, I don't know if you just all saw this evening or if you've already reviewed it previously, that maybe you're looking through it and you have some other input. Okay, go ahead.
Madam Chair, department head have any comments?
Not at this time.
Okay. Yeah, we can come up with stuff, but probably let's finish. We've been talking about this for a while. I guess in my opinion, Madam Chair, I respectfully and humbly submit, absolutely respectfully, of course. Let's just do it. I mean, let's get the words in and then just move forward. And was it Andy that said, try it for 6 months and how do we feel and come back to it in a few months and monitor along? Is that what you said?
I did.
Okay. I think it's a good idea. I think it's time to bring it current and just kind of give it a shot.
Well, so let's
Nothing to
incorporate
lose.
some of the feedback that we got relative to some
I've
specific
taken
things.
notes.
And then,
I'll meet with Evan.
yeah, maybe we can get it
Another
for the
stab.
next meeting or
2 weeks
you
from
know.
now.
Okay.
I wonder if we can have a bit in there about being advised about what is going forward. You know, we're gonna put cameras in the something. We're gonna spend, you know, it's gonna be this, here's an outline of what it's gonna be. So that we,
Yep.
and particularly, you know, oh, you just spent $30,000 on something. Wow. Be nice to know
Yep.
that this is in there and maybe have an opportunity to provide some input
Sure.
into what's happening.
So those.
So if you can craft words that say that, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
I think I can.
And by the way, and I hear that, just so you know, I hear what the two of you are saying, relative to communication and, you know, just open lines of communication, knowing what's going on, et cetera. Heard. Okay, so we will continue on our end, Mark, and with, along with Evan, to look at fine tuning this, and additionally, please feel free to email Mark and or Evan with any other, or any of us. You can send it to any of us. If there's anything else in terms of a line item that you thought would be important to be in there.
All right, thank you.
And thanks so
Thank
much
you.
for coming in,
Have
for
a nice
your
evening.
time, and for being open to all this.
Let us know. Our meeting this time, I can't tell you how many arounds and arounds and ups and downs. Some reason an agenda was, but then sending,
And we did try to get this on our agenda, knowing that hoping that you guys would have met previously, but then I think there was some.
We did try to do that.
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's, things happen.
it wasn't fun, because of just all kinds of stuff.
Sure. Understood. Thanks, everyone, for
Thank
coming.
you.
in. We appreciate it, and for your
you.
input, and for your time on this committee as well.
Yeah,
All the
and your
work that you've
service,
done.
of course.
Okay, and I made a couple of notes too. Okay, so moving along, we're talking about, considering a vote to approve the TIF agreement with UPS. And you want to kind of cue us off, or yep?
Sure. I believe we have a couple of people from UPS here, correct? So, just for the notes I have, and please feel free to jump in if what I say is inaccurate. The TIF that is before you, both Town Council and UPS Council have been working on. It has been updated, but stays within the confines of the original town meeting vote from October of 2018. The only large-scale change has to do with employment. So the original TIF called out 300 full-time jobs within the first 5 years, and then an additional 900 over the next 3. The current draft changes that to 300 full-time within the first 5 years, and then 700 over the next 3. And that is the major change that I have.
So it's 300 in the first year, I'm sorry, in the first 5 years on both accounts, the old agreement in addition to this, okay.
Yep, 300 in the first 5 years, and then it changed from 900 to 700 over the next 3 after that.
Yep, okay. All right, do you guys want to talk about anything on this, or just here
Be
answer
glad
questions?
to. By introduction, my name is Mark Donahue. I'm with Fletcher Tilton, attorney in Worcester. I represent Prologis Inc. Jonathan Scott's with me from Prologis. Prologis is essentially acquiring the property and building the building for United Parcel Service moving forward. And Mr. Scott and I have gone through the local entitlement process, both here in Grafton and in Shrewsbury. The building straddles the town line, as you are probably aware. And all local entitlements are in place. The plan continues to be to build an approximately 845,000 square foot warehouse and distribution facility. In concept, that's a building that's a little different than was thought of in 2018 when the project was first brought. To refresh your recollection, in 2018, United Parcel Service was in due diligence to determine whether to acquire the property. Hadn't really done any detailed engineering of the site, had put a concept plan together that had a relatively typical rectangle on the site, said that's going to be a warehouse kind of building. After acquisition and doing much more diligence, the building is not a traditional rectangle. It's a little bit of a spaceship kind of look. It's got a rectangle in the center and then 4 kind of wings that go off of it to deal with some of the site constraints because of that. So the building changed pretty significantly, and the use of the building changed relatively significantly. In 2018, it was considered to be really a typical type of warehouse or distribution facility. As we move forward and UPS's needs changed over the period of time, the building still services that purpose, but also services as basically the home hub for approximately 350 last mile vehicles, the vehicles that you see drive up to your door, hopefully on a regular basis, in some fashion. So that changes the mix of what happens in the building, and that's really the change for the that, and along with the growth of use of technology is really the reason why UPS has diminished its expectations on employment. I think it's fair to say that UPS would think of those as conservative. They want to rather under-promise and over-deliver than have the reverse moving forward in any fashion. Other than that, we're glad to give more detail about the project. As indicated by Mr. Blake, it's the plan that was set forth on a percentage basis back in 2018. None of that's changed. Costs have obviously gone up since then, And we've been working with already both the assessors in both Shrewsbury and Grafton to deal with how to tax a building that straddles the town line and everything else. So we're getting a better grasp of value and assessment, how that process is going to work.
And just so if people are listening, what is the percentage that is in Grafton versus Shrewsbury?
On a land basis, there's about 53 acres in Shrewsbury and the balance of about 200 acres is in Grafton. The building itself, about 61% is in Grafton. Of the primary building, there's then 3 outbuildings that are all in Shrewsbury.
Okay. And sorry, I usually don't go first, but any questions from the board? I have a couple other, but I just.
Yeah. If you want to keep
Go
going, go right ahead.
The other question I had is relative to, so vehicles, it's approximately 350 last mile vehicles that will be housed there? Or, how does that work?
Right. Jonathan?
Yes, so the trucks will be inside of the facility.
Okay. And is there a percentage of those vehicles that are in one town versus the other, and not necessarily?
Not
really a breakup with that, okay.
Haven't drawn a line on the floor to determine where the town line is. So.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yep.
Can you refresh my memory? Was this always supposed to be last mile vehicles, or was this when we had initially discussed this in 2018? Was it more?
It was probably more of a traditional kind of warehouse and distribution facility.
Okay.
The needs of UPS changed in some fashion when this project was put aside and other capital investments were made worldwide. And also, as you're probably aware, UPS has a number of different major sites in Massachusetts and Connecticut, and this just works better for the overall plan.
I mean, it concerns me a little bit. I'm just gonna be honest that it feels like it has shifted more to last mile vehicles, and I don't think that's really how the project was initially presented to residents. The potential loss of 200 area jobs in a facility that has slightly grown in size too. For me, this board voted to continue the TIF this past year based on the 2018 outline, because it's something that we had said this is what we intend to do and stick true to our word. I understand where you're coming from with reducing that number, but I can't help but feel like we're being forced to make a concession on our end without being necessarily made whole someplace else.
Sure. Through you, Madam Chair. I think it's important to note that to the extent that there's any change in impact or perceived impact to the community as a result of the modification of use has been carefully considered by the planning board. In that process, a detailed traffic impact assessment was provided. Peer review consultants were hired by the town at the expense of the applicant to review that plan. It was reviewed carefully and addressed. During that process, there were concerns expressed about the impact upon some local roadways by members of the planning board. Part of the decision of the unanimous approval of the planning board is a commitment by Prologis to contribute $750,000 to the light at Pine Street to its further mitigation of any kind of impact as vehicles leave Centennial Drive and enter that roadway system. That is a condition that is not being created by the development. It is a condition that exists according to the study right now, but Prologis is basically coming in with that also. So I think that comes into the mix also as it goes. Focusing on the impact of the TIF as it relates to real estate, I think it's important to note that the investment hasn't changed in any fashion. That the value that essentially the property be assessed at and therefore determined for taxation has probably in all likelihood gone up since that period of time.
Madam Chair. So any changes, Evan, do you think that they're massive, big changes or a little bit smaller, able to absorb and it kind of comports with the original initial intent of the arrangement where I wasn't here for, but
Right, nor was I.
Okay.
So we've been working with council on our side to answer that question, and the short answer is there's no real legal definition of what a substantial change is going to look like, right? We did spend quite a bit of time discussing, this proposal and this TIF we're working off of 2018 data. And I think that to expect that it would not change when you get to 2025, having gone through a pandemic and inflation and all those other things that happen, is probably unrealistic for us to believe that it would come through just as a whole document. It's just not going to change. So what I had discussed with our council and held them to was to try to keep it within, let's call it, the four corners of the document, and try to make it as true to what we think, keep the parity with the document. Now, obviously, the changes in job numbers were the biggest change, in my opinion. Well, probably not my opinion. I think it just is the biggest change in that document. Mm-hmm. It's up to you really to decide whether that's a substantial change in your view. However, I would say that I think that as far as what we are looking at for revenue and what we can expect as far as impacts, I think those were properly mitigated. And, I still think that as far as tax revenue goes, as the TIF steps down, that's a pretty large investment for the town of Grafton. So it really comes down to, the shifts in positions, and would we be back at the table negotiating that anyways if this started in 2018, if the model changed over time because time changes.
Mm-hmm.
If I might just amplify with your permission, Madam Chair, I think Mr. Prasad makes a good point. Is the first 3 years the commitment hasn't changed toward 300 full-time employment. That 3 years doesn't start for 2 years, because it doesn't start until operation of the facility, which isn't going to happen until first quarter of 2027. The number that moves is the long number, which goes out to really 300 in the first 5 years, and then we project 700 in the following 3 years. That's projecting employment essentially 10 years from now. That's, if you could be right on that, you can make a lot of money. I think that gets to the point of being conservative and not trying to overpromise something that simply can't be delivered just because the world changes in so many different ways. UPS is going to integrate, and there are people from UPS online if you'd like to hear from them directly. This is going to be integrated into comprehensively into their facilities. It's going to be a key part of their distribution facility throughout the Northeast, and therefore I fully expect that as packages go through, there's still going to be need for people to deal with those.
Right.
I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Just for my own clarity, because again, you mentioned more conservative employment numbers. Is that really the cause for the drop of the 200? Is you're predicting overall fewer employees at the facility than before, or is it more you feel like there will be difficulty finding staffing in the area?
It might make sense with your permission, Madam Chair. Tom Healy is a vice president with UPS, and I believe he's on the Zoom and might be able to address that directly, so you can hear from him. Tom, can you hear us?
Yeah, I just unmuted myself. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for having us tonight. Very impressive meeting so far. The first few people that went had unbelievable stories, so I'm a little humbled talking to you guys.
You can do 7 marathons in 7 continents?
One continent's good enough for me. But anyway, we are being conservative. I think Mark hit on it about the design of the building, also further technology and everything else. We just don't want to overpromise. We think we're going to do great here. And we'll be able to make the employment numbers that we had. We're being very conservative on our overall numbers. We feel good about the site. We feel good about the big investment that we're making in here. We're excited for this project, hoping we get the green light for everything. So yeah, that's really what it was. We're just being a little bit conservative because I know there's a clawback in this, correct? If we don't meet those numbers, you're going to come back to us and claw back, and that's what we want to try to prevent.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Anything else? When we talked about this a while ago, when it first came up to the board and just relooking at this document and the TIF and whatnot, you know, for me, this was talked about with UPS back then, and this deal, so to speak, you know, was made in terms of the TIF and whatnot, and so, you know, the feeling of honoring, you know, what we came up with at the time. And just as you're saying, things have changed, you know, on the end of building and companies and whatnot. Similarly, things have changed, right, in our town and whatnot. So that's just my, you know, dilemma is just looking at just kind of the numbers in terms of, you know, where the town ends up with this TIF.
Sure.
Yeah, can I just make another comment? We are going to be hiring a lot of part-time workers here, where we do offer tuition reimbursement, and a lot of UPSers start as part-time employment, and they work their way up to be full-time as well. So we are going to be employing a lot of part-time people. Hopefully, they take advantage of our tuition reimbursement while they work. And so I just hope you're looking at the overall picture of the employment that we're going to be bringing to Grafton and for this project.
Yep, understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, were you going to say something? Or?
No, I just said that. Thank you.
Okay.
Letting me interrupt you. Sorry.
I was just going to imply your comments as far as kind of the commitment to do this, the commitment that this board showed back in February by voting to honor it. Was a critical component for Prologis to move forward then with full design and go full bore into permitting. So we do see it as a partnership. That's how we got to the point of contributing much more than the proportionate share for the Pine Street intersection, because we did see it as a partnership in that fashion. So we appreciate your vote then, respectfully request for your vote this evening, and look forward to being good community members going forward.
And you mentioned first quarter of 27 for operational?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hopefully construction is anticipated to start end of the month or beginning of next.
Yeah, beginning of next month.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Pedals all the way down.
Okay. Anything else from the board?
Maybe just one more thing, Madam Chair.
Sure.
You said it, I agree with it. We really do well when we have great partners. I can just, you know, we really want a great partnership here. It's very important to us. It's very important to this board, and it sounds like that's your commitment. And you know, we have that with other folks in town, and it really works well. It's every once in a while, when there's a bit of a bump in the road, you know, you get to connect with your partner and agree to disagree respectfully and professionally and come to a better solution for whatever that bump in the road might be. So I guess I just like to put it on the record that we accept your offer to be great partners.
There's no doubt that we have benefited from the effort to try to be proactive and effort to show that partnership through the permitting. We got on a very, very aggressive permitting schedule. And, you know, we talked with Mr. Broussard, the planning department, DPW, building department, everyone has stepped up and been cooperative and responsive. And we can't say enough about the pro-business attitude that Town Grafton has taken through Mr. Broussard's leadership.
Through the chair, I'd love to just add on that. I mean, I've had the pleasure of working in many places throughout the country, and it's very, very rare to see a town partner with the developers and work with the customers like UPS, like this town has, and the amount of communication on all departments, Conservation Commission, the planning board, select board, everybody has just been an absolute pleasure to work with. So we're excited to be here.
Great, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think we are going to talk about a review later. You just wanna
That's right.
I noticed that on the
Stick
agenda.
around for Evan's evaluation criteria,
Right.
gentlemen.
And I'm looking forward to dinner at Ruth Chris.
If you want to give some input, stick around.
Timing's everything. Okay, any further discussion from the board? If not, I will entertain a motion. We feel that we're ready to go there.
Okay, Madam Chair. I move the board vote to approve and sign the tax increment financing agreement with UPS as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you very much for your
Forward to
time.
this.
Thank you. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in, and to all the people that are out there via Zoom, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Been a long time in the making.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving along to, the Board of Registrars, the annual appointment letter. So, this came up, someone on the Board of Registrars reached out to me and just were discussing the process that we use in terms of, appointing folks to that particular board and how we're doing it or how we're not doing it and how we can kind of tighten that up. So that's what led to, that individual. Then Amber kind of took, Evan spoke with myself and the person on the board, and then Amber kind of took this on and ran with it a bit. So what we have this evening is what we think is the proper process that we should have been adhering to all along. And for me, the difference is just that we are sending this out to the chairs of both the Democratic and the Republican town committees now. And getting the feedback or the names back sooner than later. And then we have some time to see how things work out in terms of the clerk position and so on and so forth. Anything to add to that, Evan?
Nope. I just want to thank Amber for taking the lead on this. She really went down the rabbit hole of reviewing the Mass General laws around this, comparing them to our bylaws and charter, and making sure that we're headed in the right direction. As we're all kind of learning together about more of what the clerk does. This will be my first time with an appointed clerk, as all of yours. So, we're really working our way through that process. And I really appreciate her taking the time to do this, and from the member of the Board of Registrars for reaching out and bringing this to our attention, because we wouldn't have been we would have kept the status quo, honestly, for probably another year as we tried to dig down. So
Yeah, it was great collaboration. And the only difference that there was an update to the packet, and it was just simply that previously we'd changed the date for the appointment to March 29th or March 30th of 2025. So we just removed that and just left in 2025, and next year that'll be 2026, and it will still run in congruent to when we're appointing everyone else in the end of June. So it's just that we're going to have these names early, and it's what we should be doing. Any questions on this? Yep, go ahead.
Not so much question, just I think it's a good policy for us to get in front of, get this going now. I know communication can be slow at times, and I think that's contributed to some of this in the past. And also, again, just I guess for general public awareness, there is kind of a verification process that the I'll say applicants have to go through, the three names that are provided from each party to confirm party affiliation and whatnot. So that's also, I think, been a wrinkle that's caught us in the past as well. So anytime, any additional runway we can give this process to smooth it out, definitely support. And
Yep, it certainly tightens up the whole process for sure. Okay, so anything from you, Mark?
No, Madam Chair.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Then I will hear you make a motion.
Okay, then I move the board vote to send a letter to the chair of the Democratic Town Committee and to the chair of the Republican Town Committee requesting a list of 3 individuals to be considered for the seat on one of the Board of Registrars.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion carries 3-0, and thank you to everyone who was involved in making sure that we got that right. Amber, I think, was it Amber or Will that put together kind of a snapshot of our goals?
I think it was Amber.
That was Amber.
Okay.
Wow.
So you've been doing a lot of really well, just so you know. Okay. So just kind of wanted to have this in front of us based on, we had met kind of 2 times, I felt like within a year. So kind of putting these all together, they're out here. I don't know if you want to speak to this at all, Evan, or is it just kind of,
I think it's fairly
Yeah.
self-explanatory.
Sure, yep.
There are check marks next to things that we've already accomplished as part of the goals. I only chuckle because Will and I were flummoxed by them earlier today until we figured out what they meant. Yeah, so anything with a check mark we've already done. Amber tried to include comments that came up when she was taking the minutes to kind of further extrapolate what the board was looking for at the time.
okay. Did anyone see anything here that they wanted to talk about? Did it look like, go ahead, Indy?
Just a couple things, going straight down the list. I couldn't remember exactly where we left communication with the Grafton Upton Railroad. I thought we were going to attempt to contact them for, possibly quarterly reports, confirm that they were maintaining safety training with the police and fire. I was just curious have we heard anything back from them? Have we sent them any correspondence recently, or?
I don't think we've sent them anything recently, to be perfectly honest. I do know that the PD and fire have been doing trainings, but I don't want to speak to the frequency of that. I will find that out and report back.
I think that's obviously the more important of the,
Yep, I agree. We've sorry, I got excited there for a second. We have had I quasi am off track on that. We have had contact with Grafton Upton Railroad and their new we'll call it foreman or representative that we deal with for a couple of resident complaints. Our office, I don't think we reached a resolution that the resident wanted, but we found them to be responsive and eager to try to compromise. I don't know that the compromise was what the resident wanted in the end, but they did seem very willing to work with us. So that was a nice interaction. We've done that I think twice since you did your goals, but that's all. We don't have a formal back and forth on other topics.
Okay.
But I will follow up on that.
And just to piggyback, I mean, I know I bring it up to Evan, but it's something that I think I'm glad it's here and that we need to keep reminding ourselves of the issues and of, trying to maintain some communication and making sure the residents feel comfortable that these safety, issues are addressed and or inspections, communication with fire, etc. That everyone feels safe and heard. Go ahead, Andy.
I was going to ask that we remove the check mark for the achieve and maintain safe harbor status category. Simply because while we have achieved it, I don't think we've hit that secondary goal of workshops with the ZBA and the planning board or discussions on how we exactly maintain it.
Yep.
If we want to do that.
I would agree with that.
And unfortunately, Mr. Alamo, you are our second TRICOM rep, correct?
Yes.
That was my next question. Was on our goals, the first meeting was scheduled back in November. Have you met since or had any?
No, they have not called a second meeting.
Okay.
I was just upstairs at the school committee with members of the TRICOM up there. It seemed from that discussion that the pause was to wait until we got this initial proposal together,
where we are,
and then reach out and start the meeting process again. So that does seem like that should be imminent.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Okay. Mark, did you have anything?
Nope.
Okay. I know that Matt brought this one up, be prepared for an override. I wouldn't mind if that read maybe a little bit differently. I agree with the,
Yep.
Hold TRICOM meetings, consider zero budget. That's something we talked about. you're using this hybrid approach, but
Yep.
you know, it's not the end of the world. Just
Yep. We can craft different language.
okay. And then, is this or will this be on the website?
Yep.
It's over
I
the
don't-
select board page.
Yeah, I don't believe it's there now.
Yeah.
I think we're
Yeah.
probably gonna have this conversation and then add it.
Sure.
Will can double check, but either way it's either we'll have it up there. It also goes in the budget book when I'm trying to have that wrapped up for next week. So
Okay. Great.
Will, are
Anything
you
else?
all right checking that, or do we have to have Amber do that too?
So this exact document is not up here, but we can get that up tomorrow.
Thank you.
I wasn't talking to you, Andy.
Oh, there it is. It's a
I
return.
made a note. Remove
Touche.
Andy from board.
Okay, great. So moving along, just put the TA administrator an annual eval on here, and it's great that UPS came through for him with what he told him to say. Way to go. So this is the same eval that some of us, all of us in this currently have done previously, and actually the other two gentlemen as well. I'm not sure how different it is from when Greg was here. But just kind of, putting it in front of you, I think it's in early March or mid-March that we'll be going through this. Amber did get the feedback from department heads and was going to email me that, so I will email each of you a department head that she'll chat with.
Oh, great.
And I didn't think about backing into this in terms of a timeline for when we'll want to have this done, but I will do that over the next week and kind of throw out a date where we'll
Okay.
put this all into, and it goes to, we send our to Amber, is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah,
To
and then it
compile.
gets collated and scrubbed.
No
Yeah.
names.
So, certainly by the end of the month, if not shortly before that. So I'll try to get the department head information to you by the end of the week. And then we can go from there. Does that sound reasonable? Okay.
Yes.
And we'll come up with a date. Okay. And then we have the fire chief eval in front of us, or a mock-up. Certainly open to discussing it and any feedback. And then the other thing is, certainly I'll get to you, Andy, but I just wanted to say that we might want to even put this on another upcoming agenda when the other two board members are here. I'd like to have their feedback as well. But we can certainly start something and then go from there.
I'm actually meant to note the same thing with goals,
Yeah.
that maybe a follow-up discussion that,
Yep.
no, I appreciate both evaluations and going through them, and I know with the fire chief evaluation, I thank you for pulling this together, and I know it was modeled after other templates and systems that we had seen. The only thing that jumped out to me, I guess from a consistency standpoint, is the difference in grading between what we do here and what we do on the TA. We use the 1 through 5 system for the town administrator evaluation, with each of those numbers basically corresponding to one of the 5 things that we see also called out in the fire chief, but instead of using the number system there, we use words. So I didn't know if there was any desire from the rest of the board to make that a little more continuous between the two processes, either go all numbers or all descriptors, or if we just want to leave them separate for the sake of what it is now, just throwing it out there.
Doesn't matter to me.
I mean, what
Good
I
call
like,
out, but
what I like about this is it's on the fire chief side of things, kind of more consistent with the way I've done performance appraisals in terms of the wording, right? So, for satisfactory, it's just spelled out for you there, right? Versus again over on the 3, it's good performance. It just seems very blanket. But we could attach numbers to these same metrics. Go ahead.
I shouldn't count. I'm not in charge of the fire chief, and I shouldn't count it on my own evaluation, but I will anyways. I think it would be pretty easy to change my evaluation to the lettering, and I think that in the past we've had some difficulties with the numbering and what each number means. And And so perhaps if you went to this, we could still do it numerically when they do the calculation at the end, because it's the same as 1 through 5, but it does give you a good metric to understand exactly what it is that you're giving the employee.
Yeah.
For a rating.
That's why, Madam Chair, that's why they do the numbers, so it gets to a certain score, a certain
Yeah.
number in the end, it averages out.
Yep.
But it's fine.
Yeah, I would not argue, but I would say you could do the same thing even though they're O's and
Yep.
G's and S's. You could just, an O is a 5.
Well,
And we
do
could
it,
essentially plunk the verbiage here and the numbers here. Because I think that the verbiage for some folks, if, haven't done performance appraisals or whatever, whatever your experience might be, the numbers it's just not a lot there, in my opinion, in terms of, what you're saying to the person when you're giving them a 3 or a 4, for example. But, so, yeah, maybe we can do a combination of the two. For me, it seems like sorry, go ahead. Did you have anything else,
Nope.
Andy?
No, thank you.
No, and Mark?
Nope, I'm good.
Just again, we'll talk about this, I think, with the other two board members here, hopefully, but the whole organizational management section seemed like a lot. I thought that maybe that can be consolidated a little bit. I like most everything else. Yeah, I don't know what part the efficient and effective, I guess that just feels a little bit subjective, but perhaps it's not. Anyways, that was the only section that I just kind of was thinking a little bit about, but I wouldn't mind having us just do this again, if you don't mind, maybe in 2 weeks. Of course, I won't be here then, but at least you've heard me now, so a little bit more collaboration.
Okay.
So we don't need to put the TA one back on, but we can put this one on just for another discussion, okay? And then maybe the goals too can pop on there see if they have any input, okay? Okay, great, and thank you so much for compiling this. It's
Of course.
fabulous. Really appreciate it. Okay, select board reports, is that where we are? Yes. Andy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had the pleasure of serving on an Eagle Board of Review with Troop 107, and the scout's name is Jackson. Jackson worked with the Trails Committee on his Eagle Scout project to upgrade one of the crossings at Hassanemesset Woods to a bridge that would support both pedestrians and equestrians. The project used CPA funds. He had to come to town meeting. If you remember, he spoke in October about it. Earning the Eagle rank is difficult enough without having to navigate town government as well. He is a well-spoken individual. Seems to just be a bright, motivated kid. Spoke passionately about his project, and would just offer him again another congratulations on achieving your Eagle rank.
Mark?
No, but congratulations.
I attended the MMA conference a couple of weekends ago, I think it was. Forget if I was no longer sick or if I was sick. Anyways, last couple of weeks have blended together because I've been feeling like great. But anyway, it was good. It was informative. I'd recommend going if you had a chance. I felt encouraged. I think it was on the Friday. Both the lieutenant governor as well as the governor spoke and threw out a lot of numbers, and I'm feverishly writing them down and increases, and it just felt like, oh, we're flush with money. And I reached out to Evan to see if he had seen what had come out the day before. He's like, yeah. So whatever, they put a great spin on it, so good on them. But we ended up with a little bit out of all of it, but it wasn't what it. So it was good though, and I was there for all 3 days, the Thursday evening, Friday, and Saturday, and if nothing else, got a chance to speak with other folks from other towns, from town managers, town administrators, DPW, just other folks in general. So that was good. It's always good to kind of collaborate in that way. One thing that, I'll mention is that the lieutenant governor did on the second day speak again and, throughout, the, I forget the name of it. I didn't bring
Student
my,
Opportunity Act.
thank you. Student Opportunity Act, which we are still working under for another 2 years. And that's kind of how these formulas are coming up, right, relative to, per student, funding coming in from the state. And what she more than just hinted at, pretty much stated that there perhaps is some room for some tweaking over before the end of this act, which is in 2027, I believe. Right, 2 years. And so she encouraged folks to reach out, and so I'm throwing that out there. I didn't write it down. Look up the lieutenant governor's email address or her office, and talk about our experience here in our town. And maybe for next time I can try to have that, and maybe we can put it in the packet, her actual email address or contact information. But it's worth a shot, and I've already done so. So, can't hurt. So went to that, and then, not to belabor all that, we had the master plan meeting last evening. We're nearing completion with that. We reviewed, final review on 2 of the chapters. We have to have final comments in within the next couple of weeks. And so that is kind of coming together. Finally, we've been meeting for a while on that. So if there's any feedback, anyone wants to send in feedback relative to the master plan, again, everything is available on our website with all the chapters and everything. So feel free to do that, or you can let me know if you have any input. And lastly, not so much a select board report, but I was on via Zoom the other evening with the finance committee, and I just wanted to state that there was a statement made during that meeting relative to the lack of leadership or lack of direction that this board is providing to our town administrator, and even sound just like in general. And I just wanted to state that I feel that this board, with our first listening to Evan presenting us the budget information 2 weeks ago, listened intently, asked great questions, entertained a different way to maybe do things. We're not sure, but entertained a 2.5, so to speak. And we are moving through the process as it should move. And I think that that was our first listen. And I thought that our board, even though I wasn't here in person, on via Zoom, did demonstrate leadership and intention. And so I'll just leave it at that. And that is the end of my report. Move on to the TA report.
Yep, so just short, we've been pretty much all budget all the time, been really focused on that. I just came down from the school committee budget, so I presented up there essentially an unchanged presentation to what I did to the finance committee last week. So now our meeting schedule will pick up in earnest. We are all scheduling time to meet with our finance committee reps. I know the school departments is somewhere in the middle of February, towards the end of February. I don't know how this happened, but I now have a full sheet of departments to meet with, because I'm now also the director of maintenance and oversee the clerk's office and a couple other things. So that really compiled. So we're gonna try to get those knocked out in maybe a day. Just do have a whole day of FinCom stuff.
It's not a bad day.
It's not. Mark will tell you. I love that stuff. Marriott loves it, and we'll get it up on the screen and go through it. But we really, the budget is unchanged from last time. We've received some updated information from the governor's office that changed our budget probably around $90,000 to the good. We have gotten some other feedback that kind of brought us the other way. But I was just, as I said, upstairs listening to the superintendent, and he was presenting the initial phases of a reduction budget. So that's really the kickoff for the school department to then start to create parallel budgets, which are dependent on funding, right? So one is we get no additional funding. One is this is the funding that we're asking for, and then, we try to make it through either of those. So other than that, I don't really have anything to add. It's middle of winter. We don't really have a lot of construction going on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Correspondence, does anyone have any correspondence they want to bring up or comment on, Andy?
So it's not in this packet, but I believe everybody here should have received an email from the MMA asking for, general municipality support for the Municipal Empowerment Act.
Yep.
Which codifies existing COVID-era allowances set to expire at the end of March, updates procurement rules and threshold updates, and property tax exemptions for seniors, among other things. The letter asked for our individual support. I didn't know if that was something that we would want to consider as a board, sending a letter to our state rep and our state senator. They did provide a press release template that seemed like it could be a good starting point for that. Minimal efforts, but I didn't know if, I just wanted to throw that out there, I guess, to the rest of the board. Because again, we can certainly do it individually. I would just feel like there's a
Yeah.
It's next level when it comes through on the town letterhead with everybody's name on it,
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, let's have, let's put on that perhaps on the next agenda.
Okay.
And then we can have everyone here. I know they spoke, Governor Healy spoke about that at length, while I was there. So, yeah, I'd happily support that. Mark?
Do you have that email?
yeah, I can forward your copy to make sure you have it.
Came just recently, I mean, within the.
Yeah, I think we
last
got
couple
one
days.
last week and then again this
They
week.
send a lot of.
Yeah,
I
it
get
was a
like
follow-up.
4 days.
I know, they do send a lot of, there was a feedback email, of course, from them after the conference, and one of my pieces of my feedback was too many emails, even just relative to that conference. It was just relentless. Maybe it worked because I went, but anyways, they do, it seems to be a lot. But, okay, so Mark can review it and we'll just put that out
Yeah.
there, and I think that's a great idea, and I think you're right, it carries some degree of, well, that we're unified in supporting this. Okay, anything else on correspondence? Okay, moving along to resignations, we have none. Any public comments? Yeah.
The only one.
Looks like we have a couple people on Zoom still.
My name's Bernard Gadzina. I'm a lifelong resident of town. I'm 79 years old, and I'm coming to ask about the changes that you made in the billing of the taxes.
Okay.
It's killing us old people. We don't have a great memory. When the tax bill came in, I thought I put a plan in place. Well, it didn't work. You're making me a tax collector, basically. For 3 months, I got to worry about paying taxes. I don't need the stress. I wish you would go back to quarterly billing. And if you don't go back to quarterly billing, I wish you'd somehow be able to contact people
As a reminder.
and let us know that it's time to send that tax money in. When I got my tax bill, it was not only double, it was also a fine in there because I didn't pay my taxes on time. Isn't there usually when you institute something new, a grace period? There was no grace period, and that hurts. I'm on a fixed budget, and that hurt. It hurt immensely. So I'd like you to go back to the billing. When I get that bill 2 days later, you got your money.
Yep.
You didn't get it this time. 3 months later, and I got a shock. So I would like you to go back to that billing, but if you don't, some way of notifying us that it is billing time. When I came to pay my bill, I came to see the town administrator, but he was at a meeting. I left my name and address and phone number there and asked to call. You've never called. I was going to ask if I could leave a card with my address on it that you could mail it to me so I don't miss the next one. If I have to spend $1 for a stamp, it's better than the $50+ I had to pay for a late fee. That was a shame. I've been in this town my whole life. I've been in my house 53 years. I've never missed a payment.
Yep.
It wasn't well thought. I know other towns do it, but there should have been a better plan. And Most people got mortgages, so they didn't even know it was a change. When you get to my age, the brain don't work as good. And it hurt. It really hurt.
I just happened to be up there yesterday paying mine in person, and the person in front of me was also stating the same thing, that, you know.
I've heard
again,
there was a lot of us.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't listen to what, you know, the specifics, you know, relative to how much he missed of it. But, you know, the notion of this is the first year of this change, and right, it's a different system. So, we can certainly discuss, you know, if there's some way to try to avoid sending out something, because that's the savings, but an alert of some sort, or, yep.
In the meanwhile, can I from now on bring to him my letter so I don't miss my payments? Can you make that part of my making sure I don't get a miss again?
So sorry, so you're,
I'm making it's
just a letter
addressed to me,
saying-
giving it to him.
Oh,
So in
and
3 months, when the next bill's up, he nails that to me. Don't cost the town anything. But he has to remember in 3 months. And I'll let you pay the bill if I'm not getting it. If I do miss it, you can pay the extra 50 some odd dollars. Is that acceptable for now?
I think that's an ask. I'm about to say that I'll do it, but that's when I get myself into trouble saying yes to everybody.
anything? Is there liability there?
No, it's just, I understand, it's like, it's gonna be your tickler system. So for me, I have a date book, right? And I literally write down.
Well, I thought I had a plan in place. It
Yeah.
didn't work. So
Yeah.
I got a new plan in place. But I'm not sure that one's going to work. When you get older, you're
No,
not responsive.
I know how that feels.
I spent my whole life in this town.
Yeah.
I was on the police department for 45 years. I served in the military, and it was a real letdown.
Yep, give it to me, I'm gonna figure it out.
I would rather it goes through the town. If you're going to accept it for the town, yes.
I will.
Thank you. It's a sad thing. You put people like me in.
It's, you know,
I
hopefully,
know it's to save money, but you can save money in other ways.
yeah, and hopefully, you know, in a few years, right, that will be our new system. But I understand that for now, it's
But I
obviously.
can't understand why there wasn't a grace period. Any company institutes things, they put a grace period in. It wasn't well thought of.
Just to be clear, Mass General Law does not allow us to put a grace period in place.
Yeah,
So it's
I would
not
assume.
a town of Grafton policy, it's the state of Massachusetts.
I can't hear what he's saying.
See, she's just saying that, or he's just saying that the state doesn't allow us to put a grace period, which it makes sense, right? So we're running a large business here essentially, and this is the income that we need to push out. So we can't do that, but we can at least talk about something.
You have reverse for school days, snow days. Why can't you have something like that for tax day? I don't know. There's got to be something out there.
Yep. Are you on the 911 call?
Code Red.
It's not, yeah, sorry.
I-
Don't
I-
anyone call the 911.
I
Code
don't know.
Red.
I'm not into computers either. I know people are looking
Yeah.
around at it from all the, I'm not into any of that stuff. I'm an old guy. I just want my life to be calm, and it's not calm right now.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for your experience.
Can I add a tiny bit to it?
Sure.
Need to be in.
Yes, and if you come up, just give us your name and your address, even though you were here earlier. Thank you.
David DeGrand, 28 North Street. My wife actually handles those bills, but I remember when it came in and you'd have to send twice. Well, they were only sending you once. She commented there was only one return envelope, which would seem to be a little bit contradictory for those who like to put the envelope aside, say, when I hit the, if somebody working with the mechanical system. I think also you're going to get real information when you see on what the response rate is, how many people paid their bill, how many people are late and how many are not.
Right.
This new system results in everybody pays their bill on time when it was first mailed out, but the next one that's supposed to be remembered, and you lose a quarter of them. Clearly, there's a problem. So a bunch of things to think about.
Yep.
I realize you can't go totally high tech and do it all online because there's a segment of the population that simply won't go that
I mean,
way.
I'm still locking mine in on Monday.
Yeah, so it's tricky. You gotta logically it should be easy in the day of just everybody's got an email, but I know you can't do it that way.
Yep. And perhaps if we get our sign at some point, that would be a nice big neon reminder. And maybe we use that other sign that we stick up there. Sometimes it's the back of the flatbed. Things like that. In the interim, but one would hope that over the course of a number of years, we will all get on this system of, we now know it's coming, we've got to send it in. We have 2 bills, but I understand that the transition, like I said, I just heard somebody, so, okay, noted, thank you. Any other public comments in the room? Anyone via Zoom?
No hands on Zoom.
Okay. We have some meeting minutes from 2016.
Madam Chair,
Just go ahead.
I move the board vote to approve the meeting minutes for April 5, September 23, October 13, October 17th, December 16 of 2016 as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on any of those? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 3-0. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, consider ourselves adjourned.